A mother noticed her 9-year-old son coming home from school thinner each day, with his lunchbox always empty. Suspicious, she hid a camera in his backpack and discovered something that made her blood run cold. Olivia Turner pressed her palm against the apartment window, feeling the November chill seep through the glass. Outside, Boston's afternoon light was already fading, the sky a watercolor wash of grays. 6 months in this new place, and she still couldn't decide if she loved or hated these early winter dusks. They made the days feel shorter, but they also made her small 3-bedroom apartment feel cozier, more like a sanctuary from the world they'd left behind in Chicago. The scent of beef stew wafted from the kitchen, where her mother, Eleanor, Ellie to everyone who knew her, was humming softly to herself as she cooked. At 65, Ellie Blackwood maintained the graceful posture of the literature professor she'd been for over 30 years before retirement. Her silver hair was cut in a stylish bob that framed a face marked with laugh lines that spoke of a life well lived, despite its share of hardships. "Noah should be home any minute," Ellie remarked, appearing at Olivia's side with 2 mugs of tea. She handed one to her daughter. "Mrs. Abernathy from 3B saw him getting off the bus about 5 minutes ago. Said he was walking slower than usual." Olivia accepted the tea gratefully, wrapping her fingers around the warmth of the ceramic. "Thanks, Mom, for everything." The words encompassed more than just the tea. They acknowledged the tremendous gift her mother had given by moving with them to Boston after the divorce, postponing her own retirement plans to help care for Noah while Olivia worked long shifts at Boston Memorial. "That's what family does," Ellie replied simply, her eyes, the same deep brown as Olivia's, crinkling at the corners. "Besides, what else would I be doing? Joining a knitting circle and complaining about my arthritis." Behind them, the apartment door clicked open. Olivia turned, automatically arranging her face into the bright smile she'd perfected during the divorce. The one that said everything was fine, that they were doing great, that this new life was an adventure rather than a retreat. "Hey, sweetheart, how was school?" she called out, moving toward the narrow entryway where her son was shrugging off his backpack. Noah Turner, 9 years old and impossibly small in his navy blue winter coat, looked up with eyes that seemed too large for his face. "It was okay," he mumbled, the same response he'd given every day for weeks now. Then his nostrils flared slightly as the smell of stew reached him. "Is dinner ready soon? I'm starving." Ellie appeared behind Olivia, her expression neutral but observant. "Just about done," she said. "I made beef stew with those big potato chunks you like. Go wash up and it'll be on the table by the time you're done." Noah's eyes lit up with genuine hunger, a flash of his old self showing through. "Thanks, Grandma." He hung his coat on the hook by the door and hurried to the bathroom, his backpack left neatly by the door. Olivia helped him with his coat, her nurse's hands automatically cataloging details. The sharpness of his shoulder blades beneath his sweater, the way his wrists extended too far from his sleeves, the pallor beneath his freckles. He'd always been slim, but this was different. This was new. "Did you see how eager he is for dinner?" Olivia whispered to her mother as Noah disappeared into the bathroom. "He's always ravenous when he gets home lately." Ellie nodded, her brow furrowed slightly. "That's what's so puzzling. He eats like he's been fasting all day, but he's still losing weight. I packed him a big lunch today, too. Turkey sandwich, apple, cheese stick, granola bar, and those peanut butter crackers he loves." Olivia frowned, glancing at Noah's backpack. "And his lunchbox always comes back empty. It doesn't make sense." "Growing boys can eat a lot," Ellie said, though her tone suggested she wasn't convinced by her own explanation. "But his clothes are definitely getting looser. Those jeans we bought at the end of summer are practically falling off him now." Before Olivia could respond, Noah reappeared, his face and hands freshly washed, his auburn hair slightly damp where he'd smoothed it down with water. "Can I help set the table?" he asked, already moving toward the kitchen with the eager energy of a hungry child. "Sure, sweetheart," Olivia said, following him. She watched as he pulled plates from the cabinet, standing on tiptoe to reach them. His movements were quick and efficient, driven by the prospect of food. Yet even as he moved about the kitchen, She could see how his uniform, a simple polo shirt and khaki pants, hung loosely on his frame. As they settled around the small dining table, Ellie ladled generous portions of stew into their bowls. Steam rose in fragrant clouds, carrying the rich aroma of beef, vegetables, and herbs. Olivia watched as Noah's eyes widened at the sight of his heaping bowl. "This looks amazing, Grandma," he said, already grabbing his spoon. "Careful, it's hot," Ellie cautioned, though she smiled at his enthusiasm. "There's plenty more if you want seconds." Noah nodded, blowing carefully on a spoonful before taking his first bite. The look of satisfaction that crossed his face was almost painful for Olivia to watch. It was the expression of someone truly hungry finally getting nourishment. For several minutes, they ate in companionable silence, broken only by Noah's occasional request for more bread to sop up the stew's rich broth. Olivia and Ellie exchanged glances over his head, their concern a silent current between them. "So," Olivia said finally, keeping her tone casual, "anything interesting happen at school today?" Noah shrugged, his attention still focused on his food. "Not really. How about that science project Mr. Patterson mentioned? Did you decide what you're going to do?" Olivia pressed gently. Noah looked up briefly. "I think I'm going to do something about how plants grow toward light." "That sounds interesting," Ellie said, passing him another piece of bread. "We could pick up some bean seeds this weekend if you want." Noah nodded, then returned to his stew, effectively ending the conversation. Olivia sighed inwardly. This was another change she'd noticed, his reluctance to talk about school, his vague answers, the way he deflected questions. "You know," Ellie said, changing tactics, "I was telling Mrs. Abernathy about how you were reading The Hobbit last week. She mentioned her grandson is in 5th grade at Westbridge too. I think his name is Dominic? Do you know him?" The change in Noah was subtle but unmistakable. His shoulders tensed slightly, and his spoon paused halfway to his mouth. "Yeah," he said after a moment, his voice carefully neutral. "He's in Mrs. Sanderson's class. Is he in any of your lunch groups or activities?" Ellie asked, her tone light but her eyes sharp. "No," Noah said quickly, too quickly. "He's a 5th grader. We don't really hang out." Olivia watched her son's face, noting the way his eyes remained fixed on his bowl, avoiding both her gaze and Ellie's. There was something there, a flicker of emotion she couldn't quite identify. Fear? Anxiety? She couldn't be sure. "Well, maybe you'll get to know him better as the year goes on," she said, deciding not to push. "It's good to have friends in the older grades too." Noah nodded without looking up, then quickly changed the subject. "Can I have some more stew, please? It's really good." "Of course," Ellie said, ladling another generous portion into his bowl. "It's nice to see you with such a healthy appetite." "I was really hungry today," Noah admitted, tearing another piece of bread. Lunch seemed forever ago. Olivia took a sip of water, considering her next question carefully. "Did you eat all of your lunch?" Noah's eyes flickered up to meet hers, then away. "Yeah, all of it." The lie hung in the air between them, so transparent that Olivia had to resist the urge to challenge it immediately. Noah had always been a poor liar. His ears turned pink, just as they were doing now. Ellie smoothly changed the subject. "I found a book at the library today that I think you might enjoy. It's about a boy who discovers a secret door in his house that leads to another world." Noah's interest seemed genuine this time. "Like Narnia?" "Similar, but with more robots and fewer talking animals," Ellie said with a smile. "I left it on your bedside table if you want to look at it tonight." "Thanks, Grandma." Noah's voice was soft but sincere. The rest of dinner passed with lighter conversation, carefully steered by Ellie toward topics that wouldn't provoke Noah's newfound tension. By the time they finished, Noah had eaten 2 large servings of stew, 3 pieces of bread, and a helping of the apple crumble Ellie had made for dessert. He ate like someone who hadn't had a proper meal all day, which Olivia was beginning to suspect might be precisely the case. After dinner, Noah helped clear the table, then asked to be excused to start his homework. "Go ahead," Olivia said, squeezing his shoulder gently. I'll come check on you in a little while. As Noah disappeared down the hallway, Olivia turned to her mother, who was already loading dishes into the dishwasher. Did you see how much he ate? She whispered, like he was starving. And yet he swears he's eating his lunch. Ellie nodded, her expression troubled. And he definitely reacted when I mentioned that 5th grade boy, Dominic. You think there's a connection? Olivia leaned against the counter, arms crossed. I don't know, Ellie said thoughtfully. But children who are being bullied often don't want to talk about it. They feel ashamed, or they're afraid of making things worse. But why would he be losing weight if he's eating so much at dinner? Olivia asked, frustration evident in her voice. And why would his lunchbox always come back empty if he's not eating his lunch? Ellie finished rinsing a pot, her movements deliberate. Tomorrow I'm going to try something. I'm going to put a note at the bottom of his lunchbox under the sandwich. If it's still there when he gets home, we'll know he's not the one emptying it. Olivia nodded slowly. That's a good idea. I've been thinking of maybe talking to his teacher, too. Mr. Patterson mentioned Noah's been going to the bathroom a lot during lunch period. That seems odd. One step at a time, Ellie advised. Let's see what happens with the note first. If someone is taking his lunch, we need to approach this carefully. Noah's already withdrawn enough. If he feels like we're interfering without understanding the full situation, he might retreat even further. You're right, Olivia sighed, running a hand through her dark curls in frustration. I just hate seeing him like this. He's getting so thin, Mom. Ellie dried her hands on a dish towel and put an arm around her daughter's shoulders. We'll figure it out. Between your medical instincts and my years of dealing with young people's secrets, we make a pretty good detective team. Later that night, after checking on a sleeping Noah, his thin frame making barely a bump under the covers, one arm curled around the book Ellie had given him, Olivia sat on the edge of her own bed, scrolling through her phone. A targeted ad showed a small, discreet camera that could be hidden in a backpack, with Wi-Fi connectivity that would allow remote viewing. Her finger hovered over the Buy Now button. It felt wrong, this contemplation of surveillance, as if she were crossing a line that good mothers shouldn't cross. And yet, the image of Noah's too thin wrists, his ravenous appetite at dinner, his careful lie about lunch, these pushed her finger down. Order confirmed, the screen told her. Delivery tomorrow. I'm sorry, Noah, she whispered into the darkness of her room. But I need to know what's happening to you. In the kitchen, Ellie sat at the table, writing a small note on a piece of paper. I love you, Noah. Have a good day. Grandma. Tomorrow she would tuck it beneath his sandwich, a silent test. Then she folded a small heart from red paper, another item to hide in his lunchbox. If these items came back home with him, they would know. If they didn't, well, then they would need a different approach. Outside her window, Boston's lights twinkled in the clear November night, countless little beacons shining in the darkness. Somewhere among them was the answer to what was happening to her son. And one way or another, Olivia was going to find it. In his room, Noah turned over in his sleep, one hand unconsciously moving to his stomach. His face, relaxed in slumber, showed none of the tension it held during waking hours. No fear, no anxiety, no careful mask of neutrality. For now, at least, he could escape the weight that had settled onto his young shoulders, the burden he couldn't yet bring himself to share. The morning light filtered through the kitchen window, casting long rectangles of pale gold across the countertop where Ellie was preparing Noah's lunch. Her movements were methodical as she spread peanut butter across whole wheat bread, cut an apple into perfect wedges, and arranged everything in the blue lunchbox that had become the center of their growing concern. Extra protein today, she murmured to herself, adding a hard-boiled egg and a small container of yogurt alongside the sandwich. Underneath it all, she slipped the note she'd written the night before and the small red paper heart, positioning them so they wouldn't be immediately visible. Behind her, Olivia entered the kitchen, already dressed in her hospital scrubs, dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Her eyes went immediately to the lunchbox. Did you? Note and heart are both tucked under the sandwich, Ellie confirmed quietly. And I'm adding extra food today. Let's see if he's still as hungry when he comes home. Olivia nodded, pouring herself coffee from the pot Ellie had already brewed. The circles under her eyes spoke of a restless night. The camera will be delivered today. I set it for express shipping. Ellie's lips thinned slightly, but she nodded. Let's hope we won't need it. Morning, came a small voice from the doorway. Noah stood there in his pajamas, hair tousled from sleep, looking even thinner in the morning light. Good morning, sweetheart, Olivia said, her voice deliberately bright. How did you sleep? Okay, Noah said, climbing onto a stool at the counter. His eyes moved to the lunchbox Ellie was preparing, and Olivia didn't miss the flicker of anxiety that crossed his face. Grandma's making you a special lunch today, Olivia said, setting a bowl of oatmeal in front of him. Extra protein to help you grow. Noah nodded, picking up his spoon. Thanks. He began eating without his usual enthusiasm, and Olivia exchanged a glance with her mother over his head. I've got the early shift today, Olivia said, dropping a kiss on the top of Noah's head. But I'll be home by the time you get back from school. Maybe we can make those cookies we've been talking about? Sure, Noah said, his focus on his oatmeal. You'd better go get dressed, buddy, Ellie said, checking the clock. Bus comes in 20 minutes. Noah nodded and slipped off the stool, disappearing back down the hallway toward his room. Once he was out of earshot, Olivia turned to her mother. Did you see how he looked at the lunchbox? He's worried about something. Ellie nodded, closing the lunchbox with a decisive click. Well, today we start getting some answers. Olivia's shift at Boston Memorial passed in a blur of emergency cases. A heart attack, a car accident victim, a child with a severe allergic reaction. By the time she checked her phone during a brief lunch break, she had 3 missed calls from a number she didn't recognize and a text message notification from her mother. School called. Mr. Patterson wants to talk to you. I gave him your cell number. I'm picking up Noah as usual. Frowning, Olivia stepped into an empty consultation room and dialed her voicemail. The first message played. Hello, Ms. Turner. This is James Patterson from Westbridge Elementary. I'd like to speak with you about Noah when you have a moment. It's not urgent, but I think we should talk sooner rather than later. Please call me back at this number. The second and third messages were similar, each one slightly more pressing than the last. Olivia checked the time, 2:15 p.m. She still had 45 minutes left on her shift. Stepping back into the hallway, she flagged down Dr. Winters, the attending physician. Rachel, I need to make a call about my son. His teacher's been trying to reach me. Would you mind if I step out for 5 minutes? Dr. Winters, a mother of 3 herself, nodded immediately. Go. We're stable right now. Take 10 if you need it. Thanks, Olivia said, already dialing the number from her voicemail as she headed back to the consultation room. Mr. Patterson answered on the second ring. James Patterson speaking. Mr. Patterson, this is Olivia Turner, Noah's mother. I got your messages. Is everything all right? There was a slight pause. Ms. Turner, thank you for calling back. I wanted to discuss some concerns I have about Noah. I've noticed some changes in his behavior over the past few weeks that I thought you should be aware of. Olivia's grip tightened on her phone. What kind of changes? Well, for one thing, his academic performance has declined. Noah is a bright student, but lately he's been having trouble concentrating, and his last 2 math assignments were only partially completed. Mr. Patterson paused. But what concerns me more is his behavior during lunch period. He's been making frequent trips to the bathroom, and when he returns, he often seems upset. Olivia closed her eyes briefly. Upset how? Red eyes withdrawn. At first I thought he might be feeling ill, but it's become a pattern. He'll go to the cafeteria with his class, and within 10 minutes he's asking to use the bathroom. He stays there until lunch is almost over. A cold feeling settled in Olivia's stomach. Has anyone checked on him? Followed up to see if he's okay? I've asked him a few times if he's feeling sick, but he always says he's fine. I did notice, though. Mr. Patterson hesitated. I noticed that he doesn't seem to be eating much. When I've looked over at his table, His lunch doesn't appear to have been touched. But when I check later, everything's gone. Everything's gone, Olivia repeated, her mind racing. Mr. Patterson, do you think? Is it possible that someone is taking Noah's lunch? Another pause. I can't say for certain. The cafeteria is large, and we have limited supervision. But given Noah's weight loss, which is noticeable, and these bathroom visits, I think it's something we should investigate. Yes, absolutely, Olivia said firmly. I want to get to the bottom of this. Noah's been coming home extremely hungry, yet he insists he's eating his lunch. Something isn't adding up. I could arrange for additional monitoring during lunch tomorrow, Mr. Patterson offered. Discreetly, of course. We don't want to embarrass Noah or make things worse if there is bullying involved. I appreciate that, Olivia said. My mother is picking Noah up today, but I'll be home when they arrive. We'll talk to him tonight and see if we can get him to open up. Please let me know if there's anything else I can do, Mr. Patterson said. Noah is a wonderful child. I hate to see him struggling like this. Thank you for calling, Olivia said sincerely. I'll be in touch. As she ended the call, a notification popped up on her phone. Package delivered. The camera had arrived. When Olivia pulled into the parking space outside their apartment building 3 hours later, her mind was still spinning with Mr. Patterson's revelations. The bathroom visits during lunch, the untouched food that somehow disappeared. It all pointed to someone taking Noah's lunch, just as they had suspected. As she climbed the stairs to their third-floor apartment, she saw Mrs. Abernathy from 3B coming down, her silver hair perfectly coiffed despite the late hour. Oh, Olivia, dear, the older woman called out. I was just coming to check if you were home yet. Your mother asked me to tell you she's taken Noah to the park for a bit. Said they needed some fresh air and might try to get him talking. Thanks, Mrs. Abernathy, Olivia said gratefully. Did they leave long ago? About an hour, I think. Your mother said not to worry. They'd be back before dark. Mrs. Abernathy leaned in conspiratorially. If you don't mind my saying, your boy is looking awfully thin these days. Is he feeling all right? Olivia forced a smile. Just a growth spurt, I think. You know how boys are at that age. Mrs. Abernathy nodded, though she didn't look entirely convinced. Well, your mother is a godsend with that child. My Harold and I see them every afternoon. She always has him doing something interesting. Yesterday they were pressing leaves between wax paper. Quite charming. Mom's been amazing, Olivia agreed. I don't know what we'd do without her. After exchanging a few more pleasantries, Olivia continued up to the apartment. Inside, she spotted the package immediately, a small brown box sitting on the entry table. She opened it quickly, pulling out the tiny camera. It was smaller than she'd expected, about the size of a USB drive with a lens on one end and a clip on the other. Perfect for attaching discreetly to the inside of a backpack. Following the instructions, Olivia downloaded the companion app to her phone and set up the camera. It was surprisingly simple. The device would connect to her phone via Wi-Fi, allowing her to view the footage in real time or save it for later viewing. A part of her still rebelled at the idea of such surveillance. But Mr. Patterson's concerns had only strengthened her resolve. Something was happening to her son at school, and she needed to know what. She was just finishing the setup when she heard keys in the lock. Quickly, she slipped the camera into her pocket as the door opened. Noah entered first, cheeks pink from the cold, followed by Ellie, who was carrying a small paper bag. Their eyes met over Noah's head, and Ellie gave a slight shake of her head. No success. Hey, sweetheart, Olivia said, bending down to hug Noah. Did you have fun at the park? It was okay, Noah said, his standard response these days. We collected some cool rocks. Show your mom what we found, Ellie prompted, handing him the paper bag. Noah reached inside and pulled out several smooth stones in various colors. This one looks like it has a face, he said, pointing to the markings on a gray stone. For a moment he sounded like his old self, excited, engaged. It does, Olivia agreed. That's really neat. Why don't you go wash up? Dinner will be ready soon. As Noah disappeared down the hallway, Olivia turned to her mother. Well, Ellie sighed, hanging up her coat. I tried everything. Stories about my own school days, gentle questions about friends, even a made-up story about a boy who was afraid to tell his parents something important. He listened, but he wouldn't open up. His teacher called me at work, Olivia said in a low voice. Noah's been going to the bathroom during lunch and coming back upset. And get this, Mr. Patterson says his lunch appears untouched, but later everything's gone. Ellie's expression darkened. So we were right. Someone is taking his food. Seems that way. Did you check his lunchbox when he got home? Were the note and heart still there? That's the strangest part, Ellie said, moving to the kitchen and opening the refrigerator. She pulled out Noah's lunchbox and opened it. Look! Inside, the box was empty except for the small red paper heart. Not where Ellie had placed it, but sitting right on top, plainly visible. The note is gone, Olivia observed. But they left the heart? And look at this. Ellie picked up the heart and turned it over. On the back, in messy pencil, was a single word. Sorry. Olivia stared at it, a chill running down her spine. What the hell is going on? I don't know, Ellie said grimly. But whoever is taking his lunch isn't just a schoolyard bully. There's something else happening here. Olivia pulled the camera from her pocket. I got this today. We need answers, Mom. Ellie looked at the device for a long moment, her ethical concerns visibly warring with her worry for her grandson. Finally, she nodded. Yes, we do. Dinner that night was quieter than usual. Noah ate with his typical post-school hunger, devouring 2 helpings of the lasagna Ellie had prepared and a large serving of salad. Olivia and Ellie both noticed how he kept glancing at them, as if checking to see if they knew something. Noah, Olivia said finally, keeping her voice gentle. Mr. Patterson called me today. Noah's fork paused halfway to his mouth. Oh, he's a bit concerned about you. He says you've been spending a lot of time in the bathroom during lunch. Are you feeling okay? Is your stomach bothering you? Noah set his fork down, his eyes fixed on his plate. I'm fine. Sometimes I just need to go to the bathroom. Every day during lunch? Ellie asked mildly. Noah shrugged, not answering. Honey, Olivia tried again. If something is happening at school, if someone is bothering you or making you feel bad, you can tell us. We won't be angry. Nothing's happening, Noah insisted, his voice rising slightly. I'm fine. Can I be excused? I have homework. Olivia and Ellie exchanged glances. Pushing harder now might only make him retreat further. All right, Olivia said. But Noah? You know you can talk to us about anything, right? No matter what. Noah nodded without looking up, then slid from his chair and carried his plate to the sink. Once he had left the room, Ellie reached across the table and squeezed Olivia's hand. Tomorrow, she said quietly. Olivia nodded. Tomorrow they would have answers. Later that night, after Noah was asleep, Olivia sat at the kitchen table with the camera, carefully cleaning the lens and checking the battery. Ellie watched from across the table, a cup of tea cooling in front of her. What's your plan? She asked. I'll clip it inside his backpack before he leaves for school, Olivia explained. It's motion activated and will start recording when he moves. The battery should last all day, and I can check the footage from my phone. And if you see something, someone taking his lunch, what then? Olivia set the camera down. Then I take the evidence to the school. Mr. Patterson already offered to provide extra monitoring, but I want to know exactly what we're dealing with first. Ellie nodded slowly. It's the right decision, she said, almost as if trying to convince herself. I don't like the idea of spying on him, but... She trailed off, picking up the small red heart that still sat on the table between them. It bothers me. It suggests there's more to this situation than simple bullying. That's what I thought too, Olivia admitted. It's almost as if whoever is taking his food feels bad about it. A bully with a conscience? Ellie mused. Or someone who feels they have no choice, Olivia suggested. Either way, I need to know who wrote this and why they're targeting Noah. They sat in silence for a moment, the small red heart between them a tangible reminder of the mystery they were facing. Finally, Ellie stood up. "I'm going to check on him one more time before bed," she said. Olivia nodded, watching as her mother moved down the hallway toward Noah's room. In the dim light of the kitchen, she picked up the heart, turning it over to examine the single word scrawled on the back. Sorry. Such a simple word, and yet it had transformed her understanding of the situation entirely. Tomorrow, she promised herself. Tomorrow they would have answers. Morning came too quickly, gray light filtering through the blinds as Olivia's alarm pulled her from a fitful sleep. She showered and dressed mechanically, her mind focused on the task ahead. Today was her day off, which meant she would be able to monitor the camera footage in real time if necessary. In the kitchen, Ellie was already preparing breakfast. Oatmeal with sliced bananas and a drizzle of honey, Noah's favorite. The lunchbox sat open on the counter, filled with even more food than the day before. A turkey sandwich, apple slices, string cheese, a small container of trail mix, crackers with peanut butter, and a homemade chocolate chip cookie. "If someone's going to take his lunch," Ellie said, noticing Olivia's raised eyebrows, "they might as well get a decent meal out of it." Olivia smiled despite herself. Her mother's practical compassion never ceased to amaze her. "Did you put another note in?" she asked. Ellie nodded. "At the bottom. And this time, it asks whoever is taking the food to please leave a reply explaining why." "Mom," Olivia began, uncertain. I know, Ellie sighed. "But I can't help thinking there's more to this story. That sorry has been bothering me all night." Before Olivia could respond, the sound of small feet in the hallway announced Noah's approach. He appeared in the doorway, already dressed in his school uniform, hair neatly combed. "Morning," he said, climbing onto his usual stool. "Good morning, sweetheart," Olivia said, pouring him a glass of orange juice. "Sleep well." Noah nodded, digging into the oatmeal Ellie placed in front of him. He ate quickly, as if afraid the food might disappear if he didn't consume it fast enough. The sight made Olivia's heart ache. "I've got the day off today," she told him, "so I'll be here when you get home from school." "Okay," Noah said between bites. His eyes flickered briefly to his lunchbox, then away. "I made your favorite cookie for dessert," Ellie said, zipping the lunchbox closed. "And there's plenty of food today. You're looking too thin, young man." Noah's cheeks flushed slightly, but he didn't respond, focusing instead on scraping the last of his oatmeal from the bowl. "Bus comes in 10 minutes, Olivia reminded him. "Don't forget to brush your teeth." As Noah disappeared back down the hallway, Olivia reached for his backpack, which sat by the door. Carefully, she unzipped the front pocket and slipped the small camera inside, positioning it so the lens faced outward through the mesh inner pocket. It was nearly invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. "It's ready," she said quietly as Ellie approached. Ellie nodded, her expression troubled but resolved. "Let's hope this gives us the answers we need." Minutes later, Noah returned, grabbing his backpack and lunchbox. Olivia hugged him tightly, fighting the urge to keep him home, to protect him from whatever was happening at school. "Have a good day," she said, forcing a smile. "I love you." "Love you too," Noah replied automatically, already heading for the door. They watched from the window as he walked to the bus stop at the end of the block, his small figure dwarfed by the backpack that now carried a secret eye, watching and waiting. "And now we wait," Ellie said softly. Olivia nodded, already pulling out her phone to check the camera app. The connection was established, showing a slightly wobbly view of the sidewalk as Noah walked. The plan was in motion. By the end of the day, they would know the truth. What neither of them expected was how much that truth would break their hearts. The morning passed with excruciating slowness. Olivia checked her phone constantly, watching snippets of Noah's day through the hidden camera. She saw him sitting quietly during morning classes, his handwriting careful as he took notes, his shoulders hunched slightly as if trying to make himself smaller. She saw glimpses of other children, heard the buzz of classroom activity, and occasionally caught sight of Mr. Patterson moving about the room. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary until shortly before noon, when the camera showed Noah lining up with his classmates, presumably heading to the cafeteria. Olivia's heart began to race. It's almost lunchtime, she told Ellie, who had been pretending to read a book but hadn't turned a page in over an hour. Ellie set the book down immediately, moving to sit beside Olivia on the couch. Together, they watched as the camera bounced along, following Noah's movement toward what appeared to be the school cafeteria. A large room filled with long tables and the cacophony of children's voices. Noah sat down at a table with several other fourth graders, though Olivia noticed he positioned himself slightly apart from the main group. He unzipped his backpack and pulled out his lunchbox, the movement giving them a clear view of the cafeteria around him. There he is, Ellie said suddenly, pointing to a boy at a nearby table. Olivia squinted at the screen. The boy in question appeared older than Noah, perhaps a fifth grader, with dark hair and a red sweatshirt. He was looking directly at Noah, his expression unreadable from this distance. That must be Dominic, Olivia murmured, remembering Noah's reaction when Ellie had mentioned the name. On screen, Noah had opened his lunchbox but wasn't eating. Instead, he sat still, glancing occasionally at the boy in the red sweatshirt. After a few minutes, he stood up. "Mr. Patterson?" They heard him say to a teacher passing by. "Can I go to the bathroom, please?" "Again, Noah?" came the reply, the teacher's face briefly visible. Concerned, not unkind. "Are you feeling all right?" "I'm fine," Noah insisted. "I just need to go." "All right, but come right back. You need to eat your lunch." Noah nodded and hurried away, the camera now showing a view of the hallway as he walked quickly toward what was presumably the bathroom. Once inside, he entered a stall and closed the door. The camera showed only the stall door and part of his legs as he sat down on the closed toilet lid. And then they heard it. A soft, muffled sound that took Olivia a moment to identify. Noah was crying. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered, her heart breaking. The crying continued for several minutes, punctuated by Noah's attempts to muffle the sound. At one point, his stomach growled audibly, the sound picked up clearly by the camera's microphone. "He's hungry," Ellie said, her voice tight with anger and sadness. "He's sitting in a bathroom stall, crying and hungry, while his lunch sits untouched in the cafeteria." Eventually, the crying subsided. Noah took several deep breaths, then flushed the toilet to maintain the pretense and exited the stall. The camera caught his reflection in the bathroom mirror as he washed his hands. Pale face, red-rimmed eyes, the determined set of his small jaw as he composed himself. "I can't watch this," Ellie said, turning away. But Olivia couldn't look away. She needed to see, to understand what was happening to her son. Noah returned to the cafeteria, walking slowly now, his reluctance evident in every step. As he approached his table, the camera showed his lunchbox, still open, still full of the food Ellie had packed. Then a shadow fell across the table. The boy in the red sweatshirt was standing there. "Hey, Noah," they heard him say, his voice surprisingly friendly. "Mind if I sit with you today?" Noah didn't respond verbally, but must have nodded, because the boy Dominic sat down beside him, uncomfortably close. "Wow, your grandma always packs you the best lunches," Dominic said, eyeing the contents of the lunchbox. "My mom's been working double shifts. We didn't have much in the house this morning." Noah remained silent, staring at his hands. "That sandwich looks really good," Dominic continued, his voice lower now, harder to hear over the cafeteria noise. "And cookies too? Man, you're lucky." Still, Noah said nothing. "So, same as usual?" Dominic asked, his voice dropping further. He leaned in closer to Noah, putting an arm around his shoulders in what might look like a friendly gesture to anyone watching. But Olivia could see the slight tensing of Noah's body, the way he seemed to shrink under the contact. "My brother said if I don't bring something home today, he's going to tell everyone about what happened in the library last month," Dominic continued, his mouth close to Noah's ear now. "You don't want that, right? It would be so embarrassing." Noah finally spoke, his voice so quiet they almost missed it. "Just take it. All of it," Dominic asked, sounding genuinely hesitant. "Don't you want some?" Noah shook his head. "Just take it," he repeated. "I'm not hungry." The lie was so transparent that Olivia felt tears spring to her eyes. "Thanks, man," Dominic said, already starting to transfer the contents of Noah's lunchbox into his own backpack. "You're saving my life here, my brother." "I know," Noah interrupted. "You told me." As Dominic packed away the last of the food, he paused, noticing something at the bottom of the lunchbox. He pulled out the note Ellie had left. "What's this?" he asked, unfolding it. Noah looked panicked. "It's nothing. Just a note from my grandma." Dominic read it, his expression changing from curiosity to something more complex, shame, perhaps. "Why are you taking my grandson's food? Please explain. He's losing weight and coming home hungry." Noah's grandmother. He looked at Noah, genuine surprise on his face. "Your grandma knows?" Noah shrugged miserably. "I guess so." Dominic refolded the note and slipped it into his pocket. "I'm sorry, Noah. I really am. It's just, my mom's been gone a lot, working, and my brother's supposed to be looking after us, but he spends all the food money on other stuff. I tried telling my mom, but she's so tired all the time, and my brother said if I cause any more problems." He trailed off, looking genuinely distressed. "I didn't know you were going home hungry. I don't know what I thought." Noah said nothing, his eyes still downcast. After a moment, Dominic reached into his backpack and pulled out the sandwich he'd just taken. "Here," he said, pushing it back toward Noah. "You should at least eat this part." "But your brother?" "I'll figure something out," Dominic said. "Maybe my friend Jake will share with me. Just eat the sandwich, okay? I don't want you to starve or something." Noah hesitated, then took the sandwich. "Thanks," he said quietly. "I really am sorry," Dominic said, standing up. Maybe we can figure something else out. I could ask Mrs. Rivera about the free lunch program. My mom just hasn't filled out the forms yet." Noah nodded, already unwrapping the sandwich and taking a bite, his hunger overcoming his pride. Dominic lingered a moment longer, then walked away, the contents of Noah's lunch, minus the sandwich, now in his possession. Olivia sat back, her mind reeling from what she'd just witnessed. It wasn't simple bullying. It was something more complicated, more heartbreaking. One hungry child taking food from another, caught in a situation neither of them had created. "Did you see that?" she asked Ellie, who had returned to watching the screen. "I saw," Ellie said quietly. "That poor boy." Both of them, really? For the rest of the lunch period, they watched as Noah ate his sandwich slowly, making it last. When the bell rang, he closed his empty lunchbox and returned it to his backpack. The remainder of the school day passed without incident. Noah attended his classes, participated when called on, and generally behaved like any other fourth grader. But now Olivia could see the undercurrents, the way he avoided certain areas of the playground during recess, how he kept his head down in the hallways, how his shoulders relaxed only when he was safely in Mr. Patterson's classroom. When the final bell rang, Olivia turned to her mother. "What do we do now?" she asked. Ellie's expression was thoughtful. "We know it's not simple bullying. This Dominic boy is hungry himself, being pressured by his older brother." She sighed heavily. "It's not black and white, is it?" "No," Olivia agreed. "It's not." She thought of Dominic's words, his mother working double shifts, his brother misusing the food money, the shame in his voice when he realized Noah was going home hungry. "We need to approach this carefully. The school needs to know," Ellie said firmly. "Both boys need help, but in different ways." Olivia nodded, already reaching for her phone to call Mr. Patterson. As she dialed, her eyes remained on the camera app, where Noah was now visible boarding the bus, his face turned toward the window, expression unreadable. Her son. Her brave, quiet son who had been enduring this alone for weeks. "Mr. Patterson? It's Olivia Turner. I think I know what's happening with Noah during lunch, and it's more complicated than we thought." As she began to explain what they discovered, Olivia felt a strange mix of emotions. Anger at the situation, heartbreak for both boys, determination to fix this, and underneath it all, a growing resolve that no child should have to sit hungry in a bathroom stall, crying alone while others ate. The camera showed Noah getting off the bus now, walking toward their apartment building. She ended the call with Mr. Patterson, promising to meet with him and the principal the next morning. "He's almost home," she told Ellie. Together, they moved to the window, watching as Noah's small figure appeared on the sidewalk below, walking with the slightly hunched posture that had become familiar over the past weeks. But now they understood the invisible weight he carried. Not just hunger, but shame, fear, and the burden of a secret he hadn't felt he could share. "We'll fix this," Ellie said softly. "Somehow." Olivia nodded, watching as her son entered the building. "Yes," she agreed. "We will." The truth, as painful as it was, had finally come to light. And with that light came the possibility of healing, not just for Noah, but perhaps for Dominic too. The shadows had revealed their evidence, and now it was time for action. The principal's office at Westbridge Elementary was smaller than Olivia had expected, with walls lined with children's artwork and photographs of smiling students engaged in various activities. Dr. Winters, a tall woman with close-cropped silver hair and kind eyes behind rimless glasses, sat behind a desk that seemed too small for her substantial frame. Beside Olivia, Ellie sat with perfect posture, her hands folded in her lap, the literature professor ready to advocate for her grandson. Mr. Patterson occupied the chair nearest the window, his expression grave as he listened to Olivia recount what they had discovered through the hidden camera. "So you see," Olivia concluded, placing her phone on Dr. Winters' desk with the paused footage visible, "this isn't a simple case of bullying. Dominic is being pressured by his older brother, and his family appears to be struggling financially." Dr. Winters nodded, removing her glasses and placing them carefully on her desk. "Thank you for bringing this to our attention, Ms. Turner. I understand your concern for Noah, and I appreciate that you're also considering Dominic's circumstances. Both boys need help," Ellie interjected, her voice carrying the gentle authority that had commanded university lecture halls for over 3 decades. "Noah is losing weight and retreating emotionally, but Dominic clearly comes from a home where food insecurity is an issue." Mr. Patterson leaned forward. "I've had Dominic in my after-school study group occasionally. He's a bright boy, but often tired and distracted. He's mentioned his mother working long hours, but never anything about food shortages at home. Children can be remarkably adept at hiding their struggles," Dr. Winters said, replacing her glasses and turning to a computer on her desk. A few keystrokes brought up a student file. "Dominic Reyes, 5th grade, Mrs. Sanderson's class. His brother Miguel is in 8th grade at Westbridge Middle School." She scrolled further. "Mother is Teresa Reyes, single parent, works at Boston General as a custodial supervisor. 2 jobs listed." Olivia felt a pang of recognition. Working in healthcare, she knew how demanding custodial schedules could be, especially for those in supervisory positions. And Boston General was notorious for its high standards and low pay for support staff. "There's a note here," Dr. Winters continued. "From the beginning of the school year, Mrs. Reyes inquired about the free lunch program but never completed the application process." She looked up, her expression thoughtful. "That's not uncommon, unfortunately. Pride, lack of time, language barriers, many factors can prevent families from accessing available resources." "What's our next step?" Olivia asked, her nurse's pragmatism taking over. "I want to help Noah, obviously, but I also don't want to make things worse for Dominic. He's clearly in a difficult situation." Dr. Winters folded her hands on her desk. "I propose a 2-pronged approach. First, Mr. Patterson will ensure Noah has supervision during lunch periods, without making it obvious that he's being monitored. Second, I'll ask Mrs. Rivera, our school counselor, to speak with both boys, separately at first and perhaps together later." "And what about Dominic's family situation?" Ellie asked. "The food insecurity seems to be the root cause here. We have resources we can connect them with," Dr. Winters assured her. "Mrs. Rivera is also our family outreach coordinator. She can help Mrs. Reyes complete the free lunch application and potentially connect her with other community services." "I'd like to help if possible," Olivia said, surprising herself with the offer. I'm a nurse at Boston Memorial, not far from General. I understand the challenges of healthcare work schedules. Dr. Winters smiled. That's very generous, Miss Turner. Let's see what Mrs. Rivera learns first, and then we can discuss how best to proceed. She stood, signaling the end of the meeting. I want to assure you that we take this situation very seriously. No child should go hungry in our school, and no child should feel unsafe or intimidated. As they left the principal's office, Olivia felt a cautious sense of relief. The school was taking action and Noah would be protected. But the image of Dominic, hungry, pressured by his brother, trying to survive in his own difficult circumstances, lingered in her mind. You're thinking about Dominic's family, aren't you? Ellie asked as they walked to the car. Olivia nodded. I can't help it. We were there once, remember? After Dad left, before you got the professor position at Northwestern. Ellie's expression softened. 6 months of food stamps and community food pantries. I haven't forgotten. She squeezed Olivia's arm. But we had each other, and we got through it. I wonder if the Reyes family has anyone, Olivia mused, unlocking the car. Perhaps they're about to, Ellie said quietly. Noah came home from school that afternoon with a slightly lighter step. When Olivia asked about his day, he actually elaborated beyond his usual fine or okay. Mr. Patterson let me help organize the class library today, he said, dropping his backpack by the door. And we started a new science unit on ecosystems. Olivia exchanged a glance with Ellie over Noah's head. Already, the increased attention from his teacher seemed to be having a positive effect. That sounds interesting, Ellie said, placing a substantial after-school snack on the table. Apple slices, cheese, crackers, and a glass of milk. What kind of ecosystems are you studying? As Noah described the rainforest diorama they would be building, Olivia discreetly checked his backpack. The camera was still there, hidden in the front pocket. She hesitated, then decided to leave it for now. One more day of monitoring might provide additional insights. That evening, as Noah worked on homework at the kitchen table, Olivia's phone rang. The caller ID showed Westbridge Elementary. Ms. Turner? This is Carmen Rivera, the school counselor at Westbridge. I had a chance to speak with Noah today, and I wanted to update you. Olivia moved to her bedroom for privacy. Thank you for calling, Mrs. Rivera. How did it go? Noah was hesitant at first, but eventually opened up about what's been happening with Dominic, Mrs. Rivera explained. He confirmed what you saw on the camera. Dominic has been taking his lunch for several weeks now. Did he say why he didn't tell anyone? There was a pause on the line. This is where it gets a bit complicated. According to Noah, the situation began when Dominic caught him crying in the library about a month ago. Noah was reading a book about a father teaching his son to fish, and it triggered feelings about his own father's absence. Olivia closed her eyes briefly. James had promised to take Noah fishing many times, but never followed through. After the divorce, he'd moved to Seattle for a job and had minimal contact with his son. Dominic apparently comforted him, Mrs. Rivera continued, but then used the incident as leverage, threatening to tell others that Noah had been crying like a baby if he didn't share his lunch. Emotional blackmail, Olivia said, anger rising in her chest. Yes, but with a twist, Mrs. Rivera said. When I spoke with Dominic this afternoon, he broke down almost immediately. He admitted to taking Noah's lunch but explained about his home situation. His mother works 2 jobs, and his older brother, Miguel, who's supposed to be caring for him after school, often uses the grocery money for other things. That matches what we overheard on the camera, Olivia confirmed. Dominic expressed genuine remorse, Mrs. Rivera said. He kept saying he didn't know what else to do. His brother had threatened him, and he was genuinely hungry. The situation has been especially bad this past month when his mother picked up extra shifts. Has anyone spoken with Mrs. Reyes yet? That's actually why I'm calling, Mrs. Rivera said. We contacted her, and she's coming in tomorrow morning before her shift. Dr. Winters mentioned you had offered to help in some way. Given your medical background and understanding of hospital work, We thought you might be willing to join that meeting. Olivia hesitated only briefly. Yes, I can be there. What time? 7:30 if that's possible. Mrs. Reyes starts her first shift at 9 o'clock. I'll arrange it with my supervisor, Olivia promised. Thank you for taking this seriously, Mrs. Rivera. Of course, every child deserves to feel safe and have their basic needs met. There was a smile in the counselor's voice as she added, and Noah is fortunate to have such dedicated advocates in you and his grandmother. After ending the call, Olivia returned to the kitchen, where Ellie was helping Noah with a math problem. Her son looked up, his expression more relaxed than she'd seen in weeks. Everything okay, Mom? Everything's fine, sweetheart, she assured him. Just work stuff. She watched as he bent back over his worksheet, the pencil looking too large in his thin fingers. There was still a fragility to him, a wariness that hadn't been there before this all began. But there was also a resilience she hadn't fully appreciated until now. Later that night, after Noah was asleep, Olivia reviewed the camera footage from the day. Lunch had proceeded normally, with Noah sitting at his usual table. But this time, Mr. Patterson had positioned himself nearby, casually monitoring the situation while pretending to organize papers. When Dominic approached, his body language was different, less confident, more hesitant. He sat beside Noah, speaking too quietly for the camera to pick up. Noah responded equally quietly, and then, to Olivia's surprise, opened his lunchbox and divided its contents in half, pushing a portion toward Dominic. The older boy looked startled, then grateful. They ate side by side in awkward silence, neither looking at the other. When the bell rang, Dominic mumbled something that might have been thanks before hurrying away. Olivia showed the footage to Ellie, who watched with raised eyebrows. He shared, Ellie observed. That was his choice? Appears so, Olivia said. Mrs. Rivera said they both spoke with her today. Maybe that had an impact. Or maybe Noah simply has a good heart, Ellie suggested. Despite everything, Olivia felt a swell of pride mixed with concern. Her son had shown remarkable compassion, but she worried that his generosity might come at his own expense. Tomorrow's meeting with Mrs. Reyes would be crucial. Something more sustainable needed to be arranged for both boys. Teresa Reyes looked exhausted. There was no other word for it. The woman who entered Dr. Winter's office at precisely 7:30 the next morning moved like someone twice her age, her shoulders bowed by an invisible weight that Olivia recognized all too well, the crushing responsibility of being a single parent with insufficient resources. Mrs. Reyes, thank you for coming, Dr. Winters said, extending her hand. I'm Dr. Winters, the principal here at Westbridge. This is Mrs. Rivera, our school counselor, and Ms. Turner, the mother of a student who has been interacting with your son Dominic. Teresa Reyes shook each of their hands, her grip surprisingly firm despite her evident fatigue. Is Dominic in trouble? She asked directly, her accent slight but noticeable. I don't have much time before my shift. Please sit down, Mrs. Rivera said gently. Dominic isn't in trouble exactly, but we do need to discuss a situation involving him and another student. Over the next 10 minutes, Mrs. Rivera explained what had been happening with Noah's lunches, careful to frame it not as Dominic bullying Noah, but as a complex situation involving both boys. Teresa's expression moved from confusion to dismay to shame as the full picture emerged. I didn't know, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Dominic never told me he was hungry. I leave money for Miguel to buy groceries. He swore to me he was taking care of his brother. She covered her face with her hands briefly. I work so much, I don't see them enough. Mrs. Reyes, Olivia said gently, I understand. I'm a single mother too, and a nurse. I know how demanding healthcare schedules can be, especially with 2 jobs. Teresa looked up, really seeing Olivia for the first time. Your son is the one Dominic was taking food from? Olivia nodded. Noah. He's 9. I am so sorry, Teresa said, genuine remorse in her eyes. I will speak to Dominic. This will not happen again. And Miguel. Her expression hardened. Miguel will answer for this. We'd like to offer some assistance, Mrs. Rivera interjected smoothly. Westbridge has a free lunch program that Dominic qualifies for. I have the paperwork here, and I can help you complete it now, if you have a few minutes. Teresa hesitated, pride warring visibly with necessity. There's also a weekend backpack program, Mrs. Rivera continued. Many of our students participate. Each Friday, they receive a backpack with enough food for the weekend. Simple items like cereal, peanut butter, canned goods. And the community center near Boston Memorial has a food pantry that's open evenings and weekends, Olivia added. I volunteer there sometimes. They don't ask a lot of questions, and the food is good quality. Slowly, Teresa nodded. Yes, for Dominic, I will accept help. She straightened her shoulders. But I also need to address the situation with Miguel. He is 16 now, old enough to know better. Mrs. Rivera and I have discussed that, Dr. Winters said. With your permission, we'd like to involve the guidance counselor at the middle school. Miguel might benefit from their teen mentoring program and possibly a part-time job through their work-study initiative. A job, Teresa repeated, considering. Yes, that might be good for him. Teach him responsibility. As the conversation continued, Olivia found herself increasingly drawn to Teresa Reyes. Despite her exhaustion, there was a fierce determination in the woman, a refusal to be defeated by her circumstances. It reminded Olivia of her own mother, and, if she was honest, of herself during the difficult early years of Noah's life, before Ellie had come to live with them. By the time the meeting concluded, Teresa had completed the free lunch application, accepted information about the weekend backpack program, and agreed to a follow-up meeting with Miguel's guidance counselor. As they walked out together, Teresa turned to Olivia. Your son, she said hesitantly. Is he okay? Dominic said he is very thin now. He's lost some weight, Olivia acknowledged. But he'll be fine. We're making sure he gets plenty to eat at home. Teresa nodded, then reached into her purse and withdrew a small container. Would you give this to him? It's not much, but... She pressed it into Olivia's hands. My mother's recipe, empanadas. I made them last night after Dr. Winters called. Olivia accepted the container, touched by the gesture. Thank you. I'm sure he'll love them. Teresa checked her watch and grimaced. I must go. My shift starts soon. She hesitated, then added, Perhaps sometime Dominic could come to apologize to Noah properly, and to meet you and his grandmother. I think that's a wonderful idea, Olivia said, surprising herself with her sincerity. Maybe this weekend? Sunday afternoon? I have a few hours between shifts. Sunday would be perfect, Olivia confirmed. I'll text you our address. As Teresa hurried toward the bus stop, Olivia turned to find Mrs. Rivera watching her with an approving smile. That was very generous of you, the counselor said. Many parents in your position would have wanted nothing to do with the family of the child who was taking their son's food. Olivia looked down at the container of empanadas in her hands. We've all been in tough situations at some point, she said simply. And I think Noah and Dominic both might benefit from understanding each other better. The camera footage from that day's lunch period showed a significant change. Noah and Dominic sat together voluntarily, with no sign of coercion or tension. They were joined by another boy, Jake, Olivia presumed, based on previous conversations, and the three of them chatted while eating their respective lunches. Noah had his usual packed lunch from Ellie, while Dominic now had a school lunch tray in front of him. At one point, Noah offered Dominic one of his cookies, which the older boy accepted with a smile. The gesture, so small and yet so significant, brought tears to Olivia's eyes as she watched the footage that evening. They look like friends, Ellie observed, peering over her shoulder at the phone screen. I think they might be getting there, Olivia agreed. Mrs. Reyes, Dominic's mother, wants to bring him over on Sunday to apologize formally to Noah. Ellie's eyebrows rose. And you agreed to this? I did. Olivia set her phone down. She's trying so hard, Mom. Working 2 jobs, raising 2 boys essentially on her own. And she made empanadas for Noah by hand, after working a double shift. You see yourself in her? Ellie said, her tone gentle. Maybe, Olivia admitted. Or maybe I just think both boys deserve a chance to move past this in a healthy way. Ellie smiled. Your compassion has always been your greatest strength. Liv, even as a child, you couldn't stay angry at someone once you understood their struggles. I learned that from you, Olivia pointed out. Remember Mrs. Harrington next door in Chicago? Everyone thought she was just a cranky old woman, but you figured out she was nearly blind and too proud to admit it. And you started reading her mail to her every afternoon after school, Ellie recalled, her eyes twinkling. Until we finally convinced her to see an ophthalmologist. The memory hung between them, warm and comforting. Then Ellie's expression grew more serious. Have you told Noah about Sunday's visit? Olivia shook her head. Not yet. I wanted to discuss it with you first. Do you think it's too soon? Ellie considered the question. Let's ask him. He's demonstrated remarkable maturity through all of this. He deserves to have a say. They found Noah in his room, reading the book Ellie had given him. He looked up as they entered, marking his place with a finger. Hey, honey, Olivia said, sitting on the edge of his bed. We wanted to talk to you about something. Noah's expression immediately became guarded. What? It's about Dominic, Olivia said gently. His mother has asked if they could come visit us on Sunday. She wants Dominic to apologize to you properly and to meet us. Noah's eyes widened. Here? At our apartment. Only if you're comfortable with it, Ellie assured him. It's entirely your decision. Noah was quiet for a long moment, his finger absently tracing the edge of his book cover. Did you know, he said finally, that Dominic's dad left too? Just like mine. Except his dad went to prison. Olivia exchanged a surprised glance with Ellie. No, I didn't know that. He told me today at lunch, Noah continued. That's why his mom has to work so much. And his brother is really angry all the time because he remembers their dad more than Dominic does. That must be very hard for both of them, Ellie said gently. Noah nodded. Dominic said he's sorry for taking my lunch. He said he was scared his brother would hurt him if he didn't bring food home, but he feels really bad about it now. He looked up at Olivia. I told him it was okay. That was very generous of you, sweetheart, Olivia said, her heart swelling with pride. So, Noah hesitated. I think it would be okay if they came over. Dominic's actually pretty nice when his brother isn't making him do stuff. Olivia reached out and smoothed his hair back from his forehead. You're an incredible kid. You know that? Noah ducked his head, embarrassed but pleased. Can we make cookies or something? Dominic really liked the chocolate chip ones Grandma made. We can make anything you want, Ellie assured him. It's your home, and they'll be your guests. Noah's smile, genuine, unguarded, was like the sun breaking through clouds. For the first time in weeks, Olivia felt the knot of anxiety in her chest begin to loosen. They weren't past this difficult period yet, but they were making progress. Later that night, after Noah was asleep, Olivia sat at the kitchen table with her mother, planning Sunday's visit over cups of tea. We should make it casual, Ellie suggested. Nothing that would make either boy feel uncomfortable. Agreed, Olivia said. Noah mentioned cookies. Maybe a few simple games too? I think he has that new building set he got for his birthday that he hasn't opened yet. Perfect, Ellie nodded. And for Teresa? She'll be coming between shifts, you said. Yes, I thought we might offer her a real meal. Something she could sit down and enjoy without having to rush. Ellie's eyes crinkled with approval. Your lasagna, perhaps? Freezes well, too. We could send some home with them. As they continued planning, Olivia felt a growing sense of purpose. What had begun as a mother's terrifying discovery, her son losing weight, giving away his food, crying alone in bathroom stalls, was transforming into something unexpected. An opportunity for connection, for community, for healing, for both families. The harsh revelations had been painful, yes, but perhaps they had been necessary to break through the isolation that so often accompanied struggle. Noah's silent suffering, Dominic's desperate choices, Teresa's overwhelming burden, all hidden behind careful facades until circumstances forced them into the light. "It's strange," Olivia said, tracing the rim of her teacup. "A month ago, I would have been furious at the thought of inviting the boy who was taking Noah's lunch into our home. Now you see the whole picture," Ellie completed her thought. "The hunger behind the taking, the need behind the actions." "Yes," Olivia agreed. "And I keep thinking, if we hadn't discovered what was happening, where would they all be in another month? Noah getting thinner, Dominic growing more desperate, Teresa working herself to exhaustion without realizing her children were in crisis. Sometimes," Ellie said softly, "the most valuable thing we can offer each other isn't food or money or even advice. It's simply the acknowledgement that we're not alone in our struggles." Olivia reached across the table and squeezed her mother's hand, grateful beyond words for her wisdom, her support, her presence. "I think Sunday might be the beginning of something important, Mom." "I think you might be right," Ellie agreed. "For all of us." The next morning, Olivia carefully removed the camera from Noah's backpack before he left for school. The crisis had passed, and whatever relationship evolved between Noah and Dominic now would be theirs to navigate, with guidance but without surveillance. As she prepared for her shift at the hospital, Olivia's phone chimed with a text message from Teresa Reyes. "Dominic came home smiling yesterday. First time in months. Thank you for Sunday invitation. We look forward to it." Teresa Olivia smiled as she typed a reply. "We're looking forward to it too. Noah is excited. See you Sunday." Olivia, she slipped the phone into her pocket, feeling lighter than she had in weeks. The harsh revelations had given way to something unexpected. Hope. For Noah. For Dominic. For two families finding connection in the aftermath of a struggle that had affected them all. The invisible weight Noah had been carrying was being lifted, bit by bit. And in its place, something new was taking shape, a growing understanding that hardship, when shared, could become more bearable. That human connection, when forged through compassion rather than judgment, could transform even the most difficult circumstances into opportunities for growth. As she headed out the door for her shift, Olivia found herself genuinely looking forward to Sunday, not just for Noah's sake, but for all of them. Sometimes the most profound healing came from the most unexpected places. And sometimes, what began as a mother's worst fear could evolve into a family's greatest blessing. Sunday afternoon arrived with unexpected nervousness for all three members of the Turner-Blackwood household. Noah had changed his shirt twice, unable to decide which one looked better. Ellie had baked not only chocolate chip cookies but also snickerdoodles and peanut butter blossoms, explaining that she wasn't sure what Teresa might prefer. And Olivia had spent the morning making her grandmother's lasagna recipe, the rich aroma of tomatoes, herbs, and cheese filling their apartment. "Do you think they'll really come?" Noah asked, peering out the living room window for the third time in 10 minutes. "They'll be here," Olivia assured him, straightening a cushion on the sofa. "Mrs. Reyes texted an hour ago to confirm." "What if it's weird?" Noah pressed, turning back to his mother with worried eyes. "What if Dominic doesn't want to be friends outside of school?" Ellie emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Then you'll have spent an afternoon being a gracious host, which is never wasted time." She adjusted her silver bob with practiced fingers. "And you'll have plenty of cookies to enjoy afterward." Noah managed to smile at that, then turned back to the window. "There's a car stopping outside," he reported, his voice rising slightly. "I think it's them." Olivia moved to his side, looking down at the street where a small blue sedan had parked. Teresa Reyes emerged from the driver's side, checking her watch as she did so. From the passenger side, Dominic climbed out, clutching what appeared to be a small gift bag. "They brought something," Noah observed, a note of surprise in his voice. "That's what thoughtful guests do," Ellie said, moving toward the door. "Now, shall we go welcome them properly?" Minutes later, there was a knock at the apartment door. Olivia opened it to find Teresa and Dominic standing in the hallway, both looking as nervous as the Turners felt. Teresa wore a simple blouse and slacks, her dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. Beside her, Dominic shifted from foot to foot, the gift bag clutched tightly in one hand. "Welcome," Olivia said warmly, stepping back to allow them entry. "We're so glad you could come." "Thank you for inviting us," Teresa replied, her voice soft but steady. She nudged Dominic gently. "Dominic has something he would like to say." The boy stepped forward, his eyes finding Noah where he stood beside Ellie. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice cracking slightly, "for taking your lunch and for making you feel scared. It wasn't right, and I shouldn't have done it, even though my brother was pressuring me." He held out the gift bag. "This is for you." Noah hesitated, then moved forward to accept the bag. "Thanks," he said simply. He glanced at his mother, who nodded encouragingly. "Why don't you boys go sit at the kitchen table?" Ellie suggested. "Noah, you can show Dominic what he brought you, and there are cookies if you're hungry." As the boys moved somewhat awkwardly toward the kitchen, the three women exchanged understanding glances. "This isn't easy," Teresa said quietly, "for any of us, but I am grateful for the chance to make things right." "We are too," Olivia assured her. "Would you like some coffee or tea? The lasagna should be ready in about 20 minutes. "Coffee would be wonderful," Teresa said, following Olivia and Ellie into the living room while the boys settled at the kitchen table. "I have another shift at 6, so the caffeine is welcome." In the kitchen, Noah was carefully opening the gift bag. He pulled out a book with a colorful cover, The Wild Robot, by Peter Brown. It's about a robot that gets stranded on an island and has to learn to survive, Dominic explained, his words coming faster now, animated by enthusiasm. "My language arts teacher recommended it, and it's really good. I thought you might like it because you mentioned you like science fiction stuff." Noah studied the cover, genuinely interested. "This looks cool. Thanks." He set the book aside and reached for the tissue paper still in the bag. From it, he extracted a small action figure Iron Man with articulated joints and light-up features. "That's from my collection," Dominic said, his voice quieter now. "It's not new or anything, but it's in good condition, and I wanted to give you something that mattered to me. To show I'm really sorry." Noah looked up, surprised. "You're giving me one of your collectibles?" Dominic nodded. "Yeah, I know it doesn't make up for what I did, but..." "This is awesome," Noah said, examining the figure. "Are you sure you want me to have it?" "I'm sure," Dominic confirmed. "I have others. And anyway, my mom said a proper apology means you have to make amends, not just say sorry." From the living room, Teresa overheard this exchange and smiled faintly. "My mother's wisdom," she explained to Olivia and Ellie. "She always taught us that words are easy, but actions show true remorse." "Your mother sounds like a wise woman," Ellie commented, passing Teresa a cup of coffee. "She was," Teresa agreed. "She died 2 years ago. Cancer." She took a sip of coffee, her eyes distant. "That's when things began to get difficult for us. Medical bills, funeral expenses. And then Dominic's father was arrested 6 months later." She set the cup down. "I don't mean to burden you with our troubles. I only want to explain, not excuse, how we arrived at this situation." "It's not a burden to listen," Olivia said gently. "And I understand more than you might think. When Noah's father left, we struggled too. If my mother hadn't come to live with us..." She trailed off, glancing gratefully at Ellie. "Family is everything," Teresa said, nodding. "For me, it's just the boys. My parents are gone, and my only sister lives in Arizona with her husband. We aren't close. It takes a special kind of strength to raise children alone," Ellie observed. "Both of you have it in abundance, from what I can see." In the kitchen, the boys' conversation had shifted to school and shared interests. Dominic was describing the science club he joined recently, while Noah listened attentively, occasionally asking questions. The initial awkwardness was fading, replaced by the natural ease children often find with each other when given the chance. "Miguel is meeting with the guidance counselor tomorrow," Teresa said, returning to the earlier thread of conversation. "About the teen work program and the mentoring. He was angry at first, when he found out what had happened, but I think he's beginning to understand the seriousness of his actions. That's an important first step, Ellie noted. Recognizing the consequences of our choices. She smiled slightly. I taught college for 30 years. The most difficult students were often those who couldn't, or wouldn't, connect their actions to the outcomes they experienced. Teresa nodded thoughtfully. Miguel is complicated. He remembers his father before the drugs, before the violence. He idolized him. The arrest was very hard on him. She sighed. I work so much. I sometimes think I've lost touch with what's happening in his heart. It's never too late to reconnect, Olivia offered. And asking for help isn't weakness. It's wisdom. She hesitated, then added, the community center where I volunteer sometimes? They have a teen program on Thursday evenings. Basketball, music studio, homework help. Miguel might find something there that speaks to him. I will suggest it, Teresa promised. Though convincing a 16-year-old boy to try something new can be challenging. Their conversation was interrupted by a timer buzzing in the kitchen. Ellie rose to her feet. That's the lasagna. Shall we eat? The meal that followed was, surprisingly, not the awkward affair any of them might have anticipated. The boys, having broken through their initial discomfort, chatted about school, video games, and movies they both enjoyed. The women found common ground in the challenges of single parenthood, hospital work schedules, and the rising cost of groceries. By the time Teresa glanced at her watch and sighed regretfully, announcing that they needed to leave for her evening shift, a subtle but significant transformation had occurred. What had begun as an obligation, a formal apology, a step in making amends, had evolved into something more genuine, the tentative beginnings of friendship. Thank you for this, Teresa said as she and Dominic prepared to leave. Accepting the container of leftover lasagna Ellie pressed into her hands. All of it. The meal, the conversation, the kindness you've shown us. It was our pleasure, Olivia assured her. Perhaps we could do it again sometime, when your schedule allows. I would like that, Teresa said, and the sincerity in her voice was unmistakable. Dominic turned to Noah. See you at school tomorrow? Jake said he's bringing his new trading cards, if you want to check them out at lunch. Yeah, definitely. Noah agreed, his eyes brighter than Olivia had seen in weeks. As the door closed behind their guests, Ellie, Olivia, and Noah stood in the entryway, processing the afternoon. Well, Ellie said finally, that went better than I think any of us expected. Noah nodded, still holding the book and action figure Dominic had given him. Dominic's actually pretty cool when you get to know him. Did you know he builds model rockets with his science club? And his mom lets him launch them in the park near their apartment. That does sound cool, Olivia agreed, ruffling his hair. Maybe someday you could go watch a launch. Maybe, Noah said, and the casual acceptance of this possibility. This extension of friendship beyond the confines of school warmed Olivia's heart. As Noah went to put his gifts in his room, Olivia turned to her mother. I think we just witnessed something important, she said quietly. Indeed, Ellie agreed. The beginning of healing for both boys, and perhaps for their mothers as well. The following weeks brought a gradual but steady improvement in Noah's well-being. His appetite remained robust, but now he was actually eating both at school and at home, and the weight he had lost began to return. His clothes fit better, his complexion brightened, and most importantly, the shadows beneath his eyes faded. At the community center where Olivia volunteered, Teresa Reyes became a semi-regular presence, initially bringing only Dominic, but eventually convincing Miguel to try the teen basketball program. The older boy remained reserved, but the mentorship of the center's coach, a former NBA player with his own troubled past, seemed to be having a positive impact. Mrs. Rivera, the school counselor, reported that both Noah and Dominic were thriving under her guidance. They attended weekly individual sessions and occasional joint meetings, where they worked through the complexities of their shared experience. Noah was learning to articulate his feelings rather than hide them, while Dominic was exploring healthier ways to handle pressure from peers and family. One evening in early December, as Olivia sat reviewing patient charts at the kitchen table, Her phone chimed with a text message from Teresa. Miguel brought home job application today. Community center helping him apply for weekend position at sporting goods store. First time he's shown initiative in months. Thank you for introducing us to center. It's making a difference. T. Olivia smiled as she typed her reply. That's wonderful news. So proud of him for taking that step. Noah mentioned he saw Miguel playing basketball with the younger kids last week. Said he was patient and kind with them. Oh, 3 dots appeared, indicating Teresa was typing a response. He doesn't show that side at home much anymore. Good to know it's still there. Would you and Noah and Ellie, of course, be interested in coming to our place this Sunday? Nothing fancy, but I have the day off and thought I might cook. Dominic keeps talking about wanting Noah to see his room. T. Olivia didn't hesitate. We'd love to. Can we bring anything? Oh, just yourselves. 1 p.m.? I'll text the address. T. Perfect. Looking forward to it. Oh, as she set her phone down, Olivia noticed Ellie watching her from the doorway, a knowing smile on her face. Good news? The older woman inquired. Teresa invited us to their apartment on Sunday, Olivia explained. For lunch. Ah, Ellie said, her smile widening. The friendship continues to evolve. It's good for Noah, Olivia said, though her tone suggested it might be good for her as well. It's good for all of you, Ellie corrected gently. Community is something we all need, live, especially single parents who work in demanding professions. Olivia couldn't argue with that. The past weeks had brought an unexpected lightness to her days. Knowing that someone else understood the specific challenges she faced, having another adult to text when work schedules changed, sharing resources and information that made both their lives a little easier. I never thought, she said slowly, that discovering Noah was giving away his lunch would lead to this, whatever this is. Life has a way of surprising us, Ellie observed, often through the very circumstances we most dread. Sunday lunch at the Reyes apartment was a revelation in many ways. Their home was small, a 2-bedroom unit in a somewhat run-down building near Boston General, but impeccably clean and thoughtfully arranged. Family photos covered one wall, and handmade curtains brightened the windows. Teresa had prepared traditional Puerto Rican dishes, pernil, arroz con gandules, and tostines, explaining that she wanted to share a piece of her cultural heritage with them. While the adults talked in the living room, the boys disappeared into Dominic's room, where sounds of animated conversation and occasional laughter drifted out. At one point, Miguel emerged from his room, a sullen teenager with his mother's dark eyes and a perpetual furrow between his brows, and joined them for food before retreating again, though not without a polite thank you that seemed to please Teresa enormously. He's trying, she said simply, watching her older sons retreating back. The guidance counselor says he's showing real improvement. Less anger, more engagement at school. That's wonderful, Olivia said sincerely. Yes, Teresa agreed, though I worry it won't last. His father's sentencing hearing is next month. The lawyer says he will likely get 5 to 7 years. I don't know how Miguel will handle that finality. Has he been able to visit his father? Ellie asked gently. Teresa nodded. Twice since the arrest. It's difficult. The prison is not a place for children, even teenagers. And Carlos, my ex-husband, he is not always coherent. She sighed. The drugs changed him so much. Miguel refuses to see it. Still remembers the father who coached his t-ball team and taught him to ride a bike. Children hold onto the good memories, Ellie observed. It's a form of self-protection. Perhaps, Teresa agreed. But at some point, he must accept reality to move forward. She shook her head, as if to dispel the heavy topic. But enough of our troubles. How is Noah doing at school? Dominic says they have been partnered for a science project. The conversation shifted to lighter topics, the boys' education, holiday plans, a book Ellie had recently recommended to Teresa. By the time they prepared to leave, several hours had passed in what felt like minutes. As they gathered their coats, Teresa pulled Olivia aside. I wanted to thank you, she said quietly, not just for today, but for how you handled everything from the beginning. You could have been angry, demanded punishment for Dominic. Instead, you looked deeper. Any decent person would have done the same, Olivia demurred. No, Teresa said firmly. Many would have seen only a bully taking food from a younger child. You saw a family in crisis and reached out a hand instead of pointing a finger. She smiled slightly. My mother would have called you an alma gemella, a kindred spirit, someone who understands life's complexities and responds with compassion rather than judgment. Olivia felt her cheeks warm at the unexpected praise. I was raised by a remarkable woman, she said, glancing toward Ellie, who was helping Noah into his coat. She taught me that behind every difficult behavior is an unmet need or an untold story. A wise perspective, Teresa commented, and one I hope my sons will learn. She hesitated, then added, Olivia, I know we haven't known each other long, but I want you to know. Having you and Ellie and Noah in our lives these past weeks has been a blessing I never expected. A light in what has been a very dark time. I feel the same way, Olivia admitted. For all of us. As they drove home through the early December dusk, Noah chatted happily from the back seat, describing Dominic's collection of science fiction books, his half-finished rocket model, and plans they'd made to go to the museum's space exhibit together. Can we, Mom? He asked, leaning forward between the front seats. Ms. Rivera said she could get free passes through the school's community partnership program. Of course, Olivia agreed, catching Ellie's approving glance from the passenger seat. That sounds wonderful. Later that evening, after Noah had gone to bed, Olivia found herself sitting on the living room sofa beside her mother. A comfortable silence between them as Ellie read and Olivia scrolled through work emails on her tablet. You know, Ellie said suddenly, closing her book, I've been thinking about what's happened these past few weeks. Olivia set her tablet aside. What about it? When you first discovered Noah was losing weight, when we found out someone was taking his food, it seemed like a straightforward problem. Identify the bully, stop the behavior, protect Noah. Ellie adjusted her reading glasses. But what we found beneath the surface was so much more complex. A mother working 2 jobs, a family dealing with imprisonment and loss, children trying to navigate adult problems with limited resources. Yes, Olivia agreed. Nothing is ever as simple as it first appears. And yet, Ellie continued, in addressing those deeper complexities, the needs behind the behaviors, everyone has benefited. Noah has regained his weight and confidence. Dominic is learning healthier ways to handle pressure and meet his needs. Miguel is finding positive outlets for his anger. And you and Teresa have formed a friendship that supports you both. Olivia nodded thoughtfully. I suppose that's what happens when we take the time to look beneath the surface. We find the real issues, the human stories behind the problems. Exactly, Ellie said, satisfaction in her voice. And in doing so, we create solutions that heal rather than simply bandage. Olivia thought of Noah as he'd been today. Laughing, engaged, his eyes bright with enthusiasm as he described the rocket Dominic was building. So different from the thin, withdrawn boy who had come home from school just weeks ago. His lunchbox emptied of food but his heart heavy with secrets. You know, she said slowly, when I first put that camera in his backpack, I was terrified of what I might see. I imagined some cruel bully physically intimidating him, maybe even hurting him. A natural maternal fear, Ellie acknowledged. The instinct to protect is powerful. But what we saw instead was... Olivia searched for the right words. It was painful, yes, but also human. 2 children caught in circumstances beyond their control, trying to survive in the only ways they knew how. And that recognition, Ellie said gently, that willingness to see the humanity beneath the behavior, that's what allowed healing to begin. For everyone involved. Olivia nodded, thinking of Teresa's words earlier that day. You looked deeper. Perhaps that had been the turning point. Not the discovery of what was happening, but the choice to seek understanding rather than simply assignment of blame. I'm proud of you, Olivia, Ellie said, patting her daughter's hand, for how you've handled all of this. And I'm proud of Noah too. He's shown remarkable compassion and resilience. He gets that from you, Olivia said with a smile. The literature professor who always taught us to look for the story beneath the surface, to understand characters' motivations beyond their actions. Perhaps, Ellie conceded. Or perhaps he simply has a good heart, as all children do before life teaches them otherwise. This observation lingered with Olivia as she prepared for bed that night. Children with good hearts, taught by circumstance to hide their struggles, to mask their pain, to build walls rather than bridges. Noah withdrawing into bathroom stalls to cry alone. Dominic taking food under pressure from his brother. Miguel turning to anger in the face of his father's imprisonment. Yet when given the chance, when adults took the time to look beneath the surface, to address the root causes rather than merely the symptoms, those same children had shown remarkable capacity for growth, forgiveness, and connection. As she drifted toward sleep, Olivia found herself grateful, not for the difficulty they had faced, but for the deeper understanding it had brought. Sometimes it seemed the greatest gifts came disguised as challenges. And sometimes, the heaviest burdens, when shared, could become bridges to unexpected blessings. The weeks leading up to Christmas transformed Boston into a wonderland of lights and decorations. Downtown, the massive tree at Faneuil Hall sparkled with thousands of tiny bulbs, while storefronts competed for the most elaborate window displays. Even in their modest neighborhood, strings of multicolored lights appeared on balconies and in windows, bringing warmth to the cold December evenings. At Westbridge Elementary, the holiday concert approached, bringing with it a flurry of rehearsals, costume fittings, and excited chatter among the students. Noah, to Olivia's surprise, had volunteered to be part of the fourth-grade chorus, something he would have shrunk from just months earlier. "Mrs. Rivera says it's good for me to try new things," he explained when Olivia questioned this unexpected development. "And Dominic's in the fifth-grade band, playing clarinet. We get to perform together for the finale." Olivia smiled, adding this to the growing list of positive changes she'd observed in her son since that fateful day when she discovered what was happening to his lunches. Noah was eating well now, his clothes fitting properly again, his face filled out to its natural, healthy contours. More significantly, the haunted look in his eyes had vanished, replaced by a quiet confidence that warmed her heart. "I'm looking forward to seeing you both perform," she told him, helping him practice his part for Winter Wonderland as they prepared dinner one evening. From her place at the counter, where she was preparing a salad, Ellie hummed along. "You know," she observed, "we should invite Teresa and the boys over for dinner after the concert. Make it a celebration of sorts." Noah's face brightened. "Could we?" Dominic said they don't really do much for Christmas because his mom's usually working. Olivia and Ellie exchanged glances over Noah's head, a silent acknowledgement of the growing attachment between the two families. "That sounds like a wonderful idea," Olivia agreed. "I'll text Teresa tonight." The response came quickly, a warm acceptance accompanied by an offer to bring dessert. Teresa's specialty? She explained. A traditional flan that had been her mother's recipe. "Perfect," Olivia typed back. "Looking forward to it." As she set her phone down, she felt a curious lightness in her chest, a sensation that had become increasingly familiar over the past weeks. It wasn't that her life had suddenly become easier. She still worked long shifts at the hospital, still worried about bills and Noah's well-being, still felt the occasional pang of loneliness that came with single parenthood. But something fundamental had shifted. The weight of doing it all alone had eased, replaced by a growing network of support that extended beyond just her and Ellie. Teresa and her boys had become fixtures in their lives. Not constant, given everyone's busy schedules, but steady, reliable. The boys regularly spent time together on weekends, alternating between homes. Miguel, initially reluctant to engage, had gradually warmed to Ellie, especially after discovering her extensive knowledge of science fiction literature. They now had ongoing discussions about Isaac Asimov and Ray Bradbury that could last for hours. And Teresa, steady, hard-working Teresa with her gentle humor and fierce devotion to her sons, had become someone Olivia texted daily, sharing everything from work frustrations to parenting victories. Their friendship had grown organically, rooted in shared experiences and mutual respect. "Earth to Olivia." Ellie's voice broke into her thoughts. "The pasta is about to boil over." Oh! Olivia quickly turned down the heat, laughing at her own distraction. Sorry. Miles away. Thinking about the concert? Ellie asked, though her knowing smile suggested she had a pretty good idea where Olivia's thoughts had been. Among other things, Olivia admitted. It's been quite a journey these past couple of months, hasn't it? Ellie nodded, her eyes crinkling at the corners. Indeed it has, and not the one any of us would have predicted. Noah looked up from setting the table. What do you mean? Ellie exchanged another glance with Olivia before answering. Well, if someone had told me back in November that the boy who was taking your lunch would become one of your best friends, and his family would become part of our lives, I might not have believed them. Noah considered his expression thoughtful. I guess sometimes bad things can turn into good things, if you handle them right. That's very wise, sweetheart, Olivia said, impressed by her son's insight. And very true. Mrs. Rivera says that's called resilience. Noah informed them with the slightly pompous air of a child reciting newly acquired knowledge. It means you can bounce back from hard stuff and even grow because of it. Mrs. Rivera is absolutely right, Ellie confirmed, hiding a smile at his serious tone. And I'd say you've shown remarkable resilience these past months. Noah ducked his head, half pleased, half embarrassed by the praise. Dominic has too, he pointed out loyally. And his brother. Miguel got that job at the sports store, and Dominic says he's way less angry now. That's good to hear, Olivia said sincerely. Everyone deserves a chance to bounce back. The night of the concert arrived with a light snowfall that dusted the city like powdered sugar, transforming ordinary streets into something magical. Olivia, Ellie, and Noah arrived at Westbridge Elementary early, Noah vibrating with nervous excitement in his concert attire, dark pants, white button-down shirt, and the red bow tie that had taken 3 YouTube tutorials and Ellie's patient assistance to properly secure. There's Dominic, Noah exclaimed, spotting his friend near the entrance to the auditorium. The older boy was carrying a clarinet case and wearing a similar outfit, though with a regular tie rather than a bow tie. Beside him stood Teresa, looking elegant despite her obvious fatigue in a simple red dress. Behind them, to Olivia's surprise, was Miguel, his usual hoodie replaced by a button-down shirt and his expression less guarded than usual. You came, Noah called, rushing over to the group. Wouldn't miss it, Dominic replied, grinning. Mom got someone to cover her shift, and Miguel actually showed up on time for once. Whatever, Miguel muttered, though without real annoyance. Like I had a choice. Teresa smiled at Olivia and Ellie as they approached. He pretends he was forced, but he was ready an hour early, she confided in a stage whisper that made Miguel roll his eyes dramatically. We're glad you all could make it, Olivia said warmly, looking forward to the performance. Speaking of which, Mr. Patterson's voice called from the auditorium doors. All performers should be heading backstage now. Parents, family, and friends, please find your seats. The concert will begin in 15 minutes. Noah and Dominic exchanged excited glances before hurrying toward the backstage entrance, leaving the adults and Miguel to find seats in the rapidly filling auditorium. How are you holding up? Olivia asked Teresa as they settled into a row near the middle. You look tired, Teresa sighed. Double shifts this week. The hospital is always short-staffed around the holidays. But I wouldn't miss this for anything. Dominic has been practicing that clarinet until I thought my ears would fall off. Noah's been the same with his singing, Olivia commiserated. I now know every word to Winter Wonderland and Jingle Bell Rock. Small price to pay for seeing them happy, Teresa observed, and Olivia couldn't help but agree. The concert itself was exactly what one would expect from an elementary school performance. Occasionally off-key, peppered with minor mishaps, a dropped recorder, a first grader who waved frantically at her parents instead of singing, and utterly charming in its earnestness. The 4th grade chorus performed admirably, with Noah standing tall and singing with surprising confidence. When the 5th grade band followed, Dominic's clarinet was clearly audible, if not always precisely on pitch. For the finale, all the performing groups gathered on stage for a rendition of Let There Be Peace on Earth. As the simple, Hopeful melody filled the auditorium. Olivia found herself unexpectedly moved. She watched Noah and Dominic standing side by side, their faces alight with the simple joy of creating music together, and felt a surge of emotion that caught her off guard. Beside her, Ellie reached over and squeezed her hand, as if sensing her sudden surge of feeling. On her other side, Teresa's eyes glistened with unshed tears as she watched her son perform. Even Miguel seemed affected. His usual slouch straightened as he watched his younger brother with unmistakable pride. When the final notes faded and the audience erupted in applause, Olivia found herself on her feet with the rest of the parents, clapping until her hands hurt, her heart full of a joy that seemed almost too big to contain. "They were wonderful," Ellie declared as the performers filed off stage to reunite with their families. "Yes," Teresa agreed, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "Both of them. I'm so proud." Moments later, Noah and Dominic appeared, flushed with success and hungry for praise, which the adults supplied in abundance. Even Miguel offered a grudging, "not bad" squirt to his brother, which Dominic received as if it were the highest compliment. "Are you guys still coming over?" Noah asked eagerly, looking between Teresa and her sons. "Absolutely," Teresa confirmed. "The flan is in a cooler in my car. We'll follow you home." The drive back to the apartment was filled with Noah's excited chatter about the performance, who had missed their cue, which songs had gone best, how nervous he'd been for his small solo part in Jingle Bell Rock. "You couldn't tell you were nervous at all," Olivia assured him, catching his eye in the rearview mirror. "You looked like you were having the time of your life." "I was," Noah admitted. "Once I started singing, I forgot to be scared." "That's often how it works," Ellie observed from the passenger seat. "The anticipation of a challenge is usually worse than the challenge itself." Back at the apartment, which Ellie had decorated with tasteful holiday touches, a small tree in the corner, pine boughs along the mantel, cinnamon-scented candles on the dining table. They gathered for the promised celebration dinner. Olivia had prepared most of it in advance. A hearty beef stew that had simmered in the slow cooker all day, crusty bread still warm from the bakery, and a colorful winter salad. Teresa's flan, revealed with a flourish for dessert, was a work of art, silky smooth custard with a perfect caramel top that had the boys asking for seconds and Ellie requesting the recipe. "Family secret," Teresa said with a wink, though she promised to teach Ellie the technique someday. After dinner, the boys disappeared into Noah's room with Miguel, who had apparently been enticed by the promise of helping them set up a new video game he was familiar with. The adults settled in the living room with coffee, the conversation flowing easily among them. "I can't believe how much Noah has changed these past weeks," Olivia commented, watching the hallway where occasional bursts of laughter indicated the boys were getting along well. "It's like he's a different child." "Dominic too," Teresa agreed. "His teacher says his grades have improved, and he's participating more in class." "And Miguel?" She shook her head in amazement. "The counselor at school says she hardly recognizes him. He's attending all his classes, turning in assignments. The job has been good for him." "They're resilient," Ellie said, echoing Noah's earlier statement. "All children are, given the right support." "I was thinking," Teresa said, setting down her coffee cup, "about the holidays. I have to work Christmas Day. Holiday pay is too good to pass up, but I'm off on Christmas Eve. Perhaps you would all like to come to Mass with us? It's at 7, and our church has a beautiful children's program beforehand. Nothing too religious," she added quickly. "Mostly music and a simple pageant." Olivia glanced at Ellie, who nodded almost imperceptibly. "We'd love to," she said. "We don't have any firm plans for Christmas Eve, and it sounds lovely." "Wonderful," Teresa said, her face lighting up. "And afterward, perhaps you could all come back to our apartment? It's nothing fancy, but I make traditional pastels for Christmas Eve, a Puerto Rican tradition from my childhood." "That sounds perfect," Olivia assured her. "We'll bring something to contribute, of course." "Just yourselves," Teresa insisted. "And maybe those chocolate cookies Noah likes so much," she added with a smile at Ellie. As the evening wound down and Teresa prepared to leave with her sons, Olivia found herself standing in the entryway, helping Noah's friends into their coats. Miguel, to her surprise, paused before going out the door. "Thanks," he said awkwardly, "for dinner and everything. My mom seems happier these days." Dominic, too. Touched by this unexpected acknowledgement, Olivia simply nodded. "We're glad to have you all in our lives," she said honestly. After the Reyes family had departed, with promises to text about Christmas Eve arrangements, Olivia helped Ellie clean up the remains of their feast. Noah, tired from the excitement of the concert, had gone to bed without protest, carrying his new book, a gift from Dominic, to read before sleep. "What are you thinking about?" Ellie asked, noting Olivia's contemplative expression as they loaded the dishwasher. "Everything, I suppose," Olivia admitted. "Where we were 2 months ago versus where we are now. How something that seemed so terrible, Noah losing weight, being bullied, could lead to something so unexpectedly good." Ellie nodded thoughtfully. "Life rarely follows the paths we anticipate. Sometimes the greatest gifts come from the most unlikely situations. I never would have imagined inviting the family of Noah's bully to Christmas Eve," Olivia said with a small laugh. "Let alone looking forward to it." "Because you looked beneath the surface," Ellie reminded her. "You saw the hunger behind the taking, the need behind the action. And in doing so, you opened the door to healing, not just for Noah, but for all of them. For yourself as well, perhaps." Olivia considered this as she wiped down the countertops. "I suppose you're right. I do feel lighter somehow, even though nothing has really changed in terms of our day-to-day challenges." "Community changes everything," Ellie said simply. "Sharing burdens, sharing joys. It's what humans are designed for. We're not meant to carry life's weights alone." Christmas Eve arrived with another light snowfall, making the city look like something from a greeting card. Olivia, Ellie, and Noah arrived at St. Catherine's Church just as the children's program was beginning. They found Teresa and her sons waiting in a pew near the middle, Miguel looking slightly uncomfortable in dress pants and a sweater, Dominic practically bouncing with excitement. The program was indeed lovely, a simple nativity pageant performed by the youngest children, interspersed with carols sung by the church choir. The Mass that followed was conducted partly in English, partly in Spanish, with enough explanation that even those unfamiliar with Catholic traditions could follow along. Afterward, they made their way through the snowy streets to the Reyes apartment, where Teresa had transformed her small living room with strings of colored lights, paper snowflakes made by Dominic, and a modest tree decorated with a mix of store-bought and handmade ornaments. "It's beautiful," Ellie declared, admiring the simple but festive atmosphere. Teresa beamed with pleasure. "My mother always said Christmas isn't about how much you spend, but how much love you put into your preparations." The meal that followed was a revelation. Pastels steamed in banana leaves, arroz con gandals fragrant with sofrito, tender pernil that had been marinating for days, and a simple salad to balance the rich flavors. For dessert, there was arroz con leche sprinkled with cinnamon, and Ellie's chocolate cookies, which disappeared almost immediately. After dinner, to everyone's surprise, Miguel produced a guitar from his room. "I didn't know you played," Olivia remarked as he settled on the edge of the sofa with the instrument. "There's a guy at the community center who's been teaching me," Miguel explained, looking slightly embarrassed. "I'm not very good yet, but—" He strummed a few chords experimentally, then launched into a simple but recognizable version of Silent Night. Teresa's eyes filled with tears as her elder son played, his usual defensive mask replaced by genuine concentration. When he finished, everyone applauded, making him duck his head in a gesture so reminiscent of Noah that Olivia couldn't help but smile. "That was wonderful, Miguel," Ellie said warmly. "You have a real talent." "Thanks," he mumbled, though his pleasure at the praise was evident. "I'm going to keep practicing. Maybe by next Christmas I'll know more songs." Next Christmas, Olivia thought, struck by the casual assumption that they would still be in each other's lives a year from now. Looking around the room, at Noah and Dominic playing a card game on the floor, at Miguel carefully returning his guitar to its case, at Teresa and Ellie deep in conversation about recipes, she realized that this assumption felt entirely natural. These people, who had entered their lives through such difficult circumstances, had become family in all but name. Later that night, as they drove home through the quiet, snow-covered streets, Noah fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted from the evening's festivities. Olivia glanced at him in the rearview mirror, heart swelling with love for this resilient, compassionate boy who had taught her so much about courage and forgiveness. "You know," she said quietly to Ellie, "when I first found out Noah was losing weight, when I saw him crying alone in that bathroom stall, I felt like I was failing him somehow. Like I should have known, should have prevented it all from happening." Ellie nodded, understanding in her eyes. The eternal maternal guilt. We always think we should be able to shield our children from every hardship. But now, Olivia continued thoughtfully, I'm almost grateful for what happened. Not for the pain Noah went through, of course, but for where it led us. For the connections it created. For the growth it sparked in all of us. There's wisdom in that perspective, Ellie observed, seeing the gift within the challenge. They drove in comfortable silence for a few minutes, the soft glow of holiday lights illuminating their path. Then Ellie spoke again, her voice gentle with insight gained from decades of observing human nature. You know, the remarkable thing about bridges is that they're built precisely where there are gaps too wide to jump, rivers too deep to ford. They exist because of obstacles, not despite them. She glanced back at her sleeping grandson. What happened with Noah and Dominic? That was a chasm that seemed impossible to cross at first. Yet here we are, having spent Christmas Eve with the Reyes family, planning future gatherings, watching the boys build a friendship that might last a lifetime. A bridge built from understanding, Olivia mused. Exactly, Ellie agreed. Understanding, compassion, and the courage to look beneath the surface instead of merely reacting to what was visible. As they pulled up to their apartment building, Olivia gently woke Noah, who stumbled sleepily up the stairs between them. Once inside, he roused himself enough to hang his stocking on the mantel. A Christmas Eve tradition they'd maintained even as he'd grown older, before heading to bed with mumbled good nights. Olivia followed him to his room, tucking him in despite his half-hearted protests that he was too old for such things. As she smoothed his hair back from his forehead, he looked up at her with eyes heavy with sleep but bright with the lingering joy of the evening. "Mom," he murmured. "Yes, sweetheart. I'm glad Dominic took my lunch that day." Olivia blinked in surprise. "You are?" Noah nodded drowsily. "Because if he hadn't, we wouldn't know them now. And they're like our family, aren't they? Not the same as real family, but important." "Yes," Olivia agreed, her throat tight with emotion. "They are important. Very important." "That's good," Noah sighed, his eyes drifting closed. "Everyone needs important people." As his breathing deepened into sleep, Olivia remained sitting on the edge of his bed, contemplating her son's simple but profound observation. Everyone needs important people. What had begun with a mother's terrifying discovery, her son coming home thinner each day, his lunchbox empty but his body showing signs of hunger, had evolved into something none of them could have predicted. A widening circle of important people. A community built on understanding rather than judgment, healing rather than blame. The invisible weight that had burdened Noah through those difficult weeks had been lifted, not just through addressing the immediate problem of Dominic taking his lunch, but through creating connections that supported everyone involved. Noah had regained not only his physical health but a new confidence and compassion. Dominic had found friendship and security beyond the pressures of his home situation. Miguel had discovered positive outlets for his anger and talents he hadn't known he possessed. Teresa had gained a support system that eased her exhausting solo journey as a working single mother. And Olivia herself had found something she hadn't even realized she was missing. A friend who truly understood her daily challenges, who shared her values and priorities, who could offer practical support as well as emotional connection. As she gently closed Noah's door and returned to the living room, where Ellie was arranging the final Christmas presents under their small tree, Olivia felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over her, not just for the obvious blessings in her life, her son, her mother, their home, her meaningful work, but for the unexpected gifts that had emerged from what had initially seemed like a crisis. All set for tomorrow? Ellie asked, standing up with a slight groan for her aging knees. I think so, Olivia confirmed. And Teresa texted while you were in the kitchen. They're coming over for dinner around 3, after she gets off her morning shift. She said not to go to any trouble, but I thought we might do a simple turkey breast, some vegetables, maybe your famous apple crumble for dessert. Ellie smiled, the lines around her eyes crinkling with pleasure. Perfect. Proper Christmas dinner with, what did Noah call them? Our important people. Olivia laughed softly. He's wiser than his years sometimes. He has good teachers, Ellie observed, patting Olivia's cheek in a gesture that transported her momentarily back to childhood. In more ways than one. Later, as Olivia lay in bed, listening to the occasional sound of late-night travelers in the street below and the distant church bells marking midnight, Christmas Day officially arriving, she found herself reflecting on the journey of the past months. There would be challenges ahead, of course. Life never stopped presenting those. Noah would face new hurdles as he grew. The friendship between the families would encounter its own tests as circumstances changed. Teresa's ex-husband's sentencing in January might bring fresh pain for Miguel and Dominic. Work demands would continue to pull at everyone's time and energy. But something fundamental had shifted in how Olivia viewed these inevitable challenges. Where once she might have seen only problems to be solved, crises to be managed, now she recognized the potential bridges waiting to be built, the connections that might form if she took the time to look beneath the surface, to understand the human needs and stories behind every difficulty. The invisible weight that had burdened her son had been transformed into a visible blessing, a community of support, understanding, and genuine care that extended beyond their small family unit. And in the end, wasn't that the greatest gift any of them could receive? Not the absence of struggles, but the presence of others to share them with. Not a life free from challenges, but a life rich with connections that made those challenges bearable, even meaningful. As she drifted towards sleep, Olivia carried with her the image of Noah and Dominic sitting side by side at Teresa's small dining table, heads bent over a card game, their earlier roles as victim and bully long dissolved in the warm reality of their growing friendship. She thought of Miguel's unexpected music, Teresa's generous hospitality despite limited resources, Ellie's quiet wisdom guiding them all. Bridges where there had once been chasms, understanding where there had been fear, connection where there had been isolation. Perhaps, she reflected as sleep finally claimed her, this was the truest meaning of peace on earth, goodwill to all. Not the absence of problems, but the presence of compassion. Not the elimination of differences, but the building of bridges across them. Not the denial of human struggle, but the sharing of burdens that made them lighter for everyone. The invisible weight had been lifted, not because the world had suddenly become an easier place, but because they had learned to carry its challenges together with understanding, with grace, and with the profound recognition that beneath the surface of every human story lay needs, fears, and hopes not so different from their own.